Hey, come on, come with me. Let's read the Hugos. The 2018 Hugo winners were announced at Worldcon, as they always are. The Hugos are voted on by the members of Worldcon, so people who buy a membership ticket, and this doesn't count as a membership to the con, so lots of people who buy tickets don't go, and then they vote online. There are a few paper ballots, but they're not as common anymore. If you want more history about the Hugos, you can read Joe Walton's recent book, An Informal History of the Hugos, but we are talking about the most recent Hugos. So these are kind of the People's Choice Award of the Sci-Fi and Fantasy Awards, and they are some of the most popular awards. I read somewhere that they're the only award that increases the amount of books bought, so if a book wins the Hugos, it gets purchased more, which is totally rad, and all of these books that won deserve to be purchased. Let's get started. We're going to go from shortest to longest, so I'm only doing the 4 main ones, so that's best short story, novelette, novella, and novel, and I will start with Welcome to Your Authentic American Indian Experience, TM, by Rebecca Roanhorse. Rebecca Roanhorse also won the John Campbell Award, I think it's called, for Best Author, and that was, I'm pretty sure, both for her work on this short story and her new post-apocalyptic Danae supernatural mystery series. The first one is called Trail of Lightning, and I haven't read it yet. It's on my TBR, but it just came out, in my defense. I can definitely see why this won Best Short Story. Not only is it an amazing story by a woman of color telling an own voices story, it's also a very 2018 story, because there's been a, well, not so recent, but kind of overall since like the 80s trend of short stories being like weird and twisty and working with form. There's a really great essay by Michael Chabon called Trickster in a Suit of Lights, which I would recommend if you, like me, are a little frustrated by the recent way that short stories have been going, in that I really like stories that tell a story, and I think a lot of recent short stories have been like telling an experience, and this short story is really cool because it does both of those things. And this story is in second person. It is about you, and you are a man who works for a sort of VR company that gives people really expensive personalized VR experiences, and you are giving white people spirit vision, like vision quests. Or are you? And so it is one of those stories that has a kind of twist at the end, but also, I'll give you a hint, if you pay attention to the title, you will see it coming. And I can pretty much guarantee that this will join the growing canon of speculative indigenous fiction. I think it's really amazing that this genre is growing, and Rebecca Roanhorse is one of the great people who's, you know, adding to that work. There are a lot, not a lot, but a decent number of literary indigenous writers working today. They don't get as much recognition as they should, but my specialty is really in genre fiction, so I think it's amazing to see women of color and indigenous women breaking into this genre more. Many novels by indigenous authors deal with the themes of cultural appropriation, and that is sort of this story's oeuvre. Next up is The Secret Life of Bots by Suzanne Palmer, and I should have said with the last one, but this one originally was in Clark's World. And this is a, I don't know what the requirement, like the length requirement for a novelette is, but Secret Life of Bots is over 8,000 words, and I really like this novelette because, as opposed to Authentic American Indian Experience, TM, it is a more traditional story, but just traditional in the way that it's told, not traditional in the content. So it's about a bot that wakes up on a ship that's been long dormant, and the bot comes to find out, and we the reader come to find out, that the ship has been in storage for years, and getting this ship out is a last-ditch effort for humans to fight off an alien invasion. We go with the bot as it's kind of trying to navigate the ship and what's going on, and the bot is a really great character. I think its name is Nine, which reminds me of that animated movie with Elijah Wood in it from like the aughts. But anyway, it's really cute, and I really love stories that tell a traditional story from a non-traditional viewpoint, whether that's from like a woman or a person of color or a bot. I mean, bot representation isn't like people of color representation, but also some of my favorite stories have been non-traditional versions of very traditional and well-known stories. Speaking of bots, I am so excited that the winner of the Hugo novella this year was All Systems Red by Martha Wells. The third book in this novella series just came out, and I just got it from the library today, so I haven't read it yet, but I'm really excited. I read this novella several months ago, I think in February or something like that, and I read it in one day. It was so readable and so enjoyable, and it's about a sort of clone cyborg that calls itself Murderbot, and I am using it because those are the pronouns that it chooses. This story doesn't really go into like bot autonomy, but it might later down the line. So it calls itself Murderbot because it has hacked its governor module and it has free will, but instead of killing the humans it serves, it just wants to watch TV, which, relatable. It gets really invested in shows, and it's just adorable. And so it is trying to be really detached emotionally from the mission that it's on, and it's like, can we just go back to the base so I can watch TV and we don't have to be on this geological like expedition anymore? But when something goes wrong with the team that it's working with, it has to work to save everyone, and then it has to reveal that it has free will, and it always wants to hide behind its visor because it's like really socially anxious, but then it has to like talk to people, and it's just such a fun read. My one complaint is that it has kind of too many characters for a novella, and they're all a little bit interchangeable. There's like, I can really only remember the names of like 2 characters besides Murderbot, but that's okay. I mean, it makes more sense that the expedition has more people, but the secondary characters weren't as well developed as I wanted them to be. This novella was published by Tor.com Publishing. They had, I think, 4 novellas on the list this year, and the other one was published in an online magazine. And I mean, Tor.com has really cornered the novella market. They got Sarah Gailey's books, the Shauna Maguire books, which are phenomenal, and this series, and also the J.Y. Yang books, which I think the 3rd one came out recently. And so if you haven't been into novellas before, any one of the Tor.com novellas are great, and there's even ones that would work specifically for you. The Murderbot series is very hard sci-fi, but it's hard sci-fi with heart, which I personally love, and so if you want to get into some kind of reading that won't take you as long, but it's still long enough for you to be invested in the story, then I would definitely go with any one of Tor.com's novellas that came out recently. And kind of no matter what story Martha Wells tells with Murderbot, I will enjoy it because Murderbot's voice is so strong. They're probably one of the robots with most personality of any robot character I've ever read or seen on screen. I mean, Data, but like, Murderbot's snarkier, so. And then, the pièce de résistance, the creme de la creme of all awards, the Hugo for Best Novel. And y'all, if you're watching this video, you probably already know that my woman, N.K. Jemisin, made history and gave the best Hugo Award acceptance speech in history. N.K. Jemisin, a black woman, won the Hugo 3 years in a row. Not only was she the first black woman to win for Best Novel, she won it 3 years in a row, and she justly deserves this award. The Stone Sky was everyone saying that it's the best 3rd book of a trilogy they've ever read, and these books are so hard to read because the world is so hard, but you feel so much for the characters. The finale of this story and of this trilogy is just devastating, but so satisfying. Like, I definitely cried while reading this book, and I mean, I don't think that any of the other books on this list were contenders this year, except for 6 Wakes by Murray Lafferty, but this book just outshone all of them. And I think that even if there had been stronger books in the running this year, this book would have won anyway. And as N.K. Jemisin said in her speech, they didn't just give her this award. She worked her ass off and she earned this damn award because The Stone Sky is just absolutely phenomenal. If you haven't read the Broken Earth trilogy, it is about a world where there are a few people in the population who can control or create earthquakes among their abilities. I think that they're pretty heavily influenced by earthbenders, but this world is so tough in that the Orogenes who have this power are just pretty much, when they reveal their power, if they aren't taken to a special university, they're killed instantly because they're feared so much. And this story has been following the same woman for 3 stories and her daughter. And it gets into her past and her present day and what's happening. And there's a lot going on that I can't explain because it's a whole trilogy worth of books. But just everything comes to its final conclusion and like every question is answered and it is absolutely breathtaking. My one complaint of The Stone Sky is actually the same complaint that I have for All Systems Red, in that I didn't connect to the secondary characters as much as I wanted to. I love characters. They're probably one of my favorite parts of any media, whether it's a book or a TV show. I mean, you could have 5 characters that I love sitting in a room and talking for 45 minutes and I'd be like, phenomenal show, amazing. So I think that a story for me really lives and dies by its characters, and while the main characters of The Stone Sky are just amazing, I don't think the secondary characters were as well fleshed out, so that's a bummer. But I know that N.K. Jemisin is just going to go on to keep writing amazing things, and when we talk about new classics of sci-fi and fantasy, this is at the top of the list. This series is sort of a phenomenon, and I think it's really going to go down in history. There you have it. Those are the kind of top 4 Hugo 2018 winners. I didn't get into the best series, best editor, but those are a little more hard to review, and plus I didn't want to read the whole Lois McMaster Bujold series that won, so I mean, I'd already read most of these. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I've got another series going on right now called 20th Century Femme SFF, where I read books in the sci-fi and fantasy genre published by women in the 20th century, which seems specific, but I mean, representation. So please check that out if you're interested. I think that if you enjoy this video, you'll probably enjoy that video because I'm just a nerd about Hugo winners and modern day classics. Hopefully I will be talking to you again, so please subscribe, rate and review or whatever. Yeah, okay. Bye.